Good morning and welcome to the enclosure. Today I'm going to finish off the non-potable water I'm using it for the toilet circuit and for taps that I've got going to each of the roof surfaces. The water is coming from a cistern, a 1,000-gallon cistern in the front yard. And that cistern is fed via the water being collected around the perimeter drainage on the foundation down at the footing level. And normally it gets pumped up and sent out to the municipal sewer. But we are collecting it first, and we're going to use it for irrigation outside for both our yard and our neighbor's yard, and also for the non-potable circuit inside the house. So I'm using PexA, which is by Uponor. The purple identifies it as non-potable water service, so it saves you from having to mark it with stickers all over the place. I use PexA because it has a better flow rate than compared to PexB. Is more flexible, is more forgiving. I can actually bend this in half or kink it, and just with a heat gun heat it up, and I can show you that later, heat it up so that it's ready for use again. And it's much faster to install. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to sweat on a copper extension to this. I've already opened up the tap on the outside so that the gasket is as far away as possible from our soldering surface. And I've pre-cut a piece of tubing, and normally you will use something like this to clean it off, but because, well, yeah, because this is so small, I'm just going to use some emery cloth to give it a clean before I sweat it. And let's see what we can do here. You want to basically get it down to nice shiny copper for the best flow of solder. You also want to make sure you've deburred the inside. And most cutters come with a little wedge, a little triangle like that, so that you can deburr the inside edge, and this just improves the flow rate and also the flow rate of the fluid within the pipes, as well as providing a more durable joint. Okay, so that looks good. Tin it or clean it with some flux, and this also helps the solder flow. So I'm going to stick some on the inside and then some on the pipe. Okay. And there we go. And that sticks out a perfect amount for the next piece that's going to go on there, which is, if I can find it, stick these on. I've already made sure that I can screw on the PEX connector. There's enough room to screw that on. So we'll just, actually I forgot something. I forgot to clean the inside of that connection with the brush. So just give that a clean, give this clean, and then this is a little bit more awkward when I'm trying to do it so that you can see it. But we'll get her done. Okay. I'm just going to clean out some of the excess flux. There we go. Now, this it's non-potable, so obviously no human's going to consume it. But because I am generally soldering potable, you want a lead-free solder. I also use MAP gas instead of just propane. It burns a little hotter and is a little bit faster and easier of soldering connections. And I've got one of these instant connections, or sorry, instant starters. Basically, you just want to do this to the point where it's going to start accepting the solder. And it'll just suck it right in. Not quite yet. Nope. So, I'm going to add, at this point, I'm going to add a little bit more flux. Get my glasses on here. Trying to do this also, because this is tight quarters, without burning everything. If I had been smart, I would have put a copper extension on the tap, the no-freeze tap, prior to sticking it through the wall and connecting it. But I wasn't. Normally this goes quite a bit faster. Getting closer, sucking it in. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I don't want to transfer too much heat through to the other side because I don't want to damage the membrane that's sealing around that. So I'm going to get some spray bottle with water so that we can cool it down along the surface. Okay, I've had to come up with a different plan. I had a battery that went dead, and as a result, I'm worried I've lost all the video of us putting this together. It's currently being restored with a utility, so we'll see how it works. I was in the middle of explaining how, because this is in a confined space, or confined space, I was going to use the Uponor 90 elbow, which places the pipe into an approved, although that doesn't look very good. Huh. That was after leaving it for a period of time. Now that's easily repairable, And I may as well show you how to do that now. So I'm going to pause you for a sec and then figure out why it did that. So welcome back. I had wanted to show you how PexA Uponor Wisbro ProPex is repairable. So here you can see that there's a kink in this line, and instead of just chucking it away like we'd have to on PexA, it's just a matter, PexB, it's just a matter of heating it up. Use a heat gun, not a torch. If you use a torch, it's too high heat and it'll melt the plastic. But a heat gun, basically all we're wanting to do is to heat it up so that it's clear. It's no longer opaque like it is now. And you can start seeing it should be able to start seeing it shortly become more translucent. And hopefully it'll show up on camera. I'm actually seeing an effect already. So I'm able to almost see through it at this point. You should be able to see that now on the camera. And then it's just a matter of letting it cool down. And that equalizes all of the molecules and takes the kink out and means you can use it all over again. Okay, so I'll pause you while this cools down. So we're now cooled down and it's basically a brand new pipe. So we're going to try that again. We're going to, I'm going to put the original one on. I had cut the ear off this fitting because it makes it harder to insulate. But I'm going to leave it on this time and cut it off after it's been bent up. And it should just be a simple matter of snapping it in place, and that should be it. Okay, so we can figure out our lengths. I'm actually worried that this is going to be too tight, so we'll see how we make out. Basically, I'm wanting to go like that, but yeah, now that I realized it, I don't even need the elbow. What happens when you're concentrating on video more than you are on work. So we're going to put this compression fitting on. As I mentioned earlier, if that video still exists, it's got a lip on one side and it's smooth on the other. That provides a backstop for it to slide up onto. And then the DeWalt, I'm using a DeWalt PexA tubing expander. And basically as it operates, it's rotating, which makes it a lot easier than the manual one, which you have to rotate obviously manually. And it's just a matter of going all the way down to the stop, letting it rotate a few clicks, and then sliding it onto, we have a little bit of time, sliding it onto the fitting. When it's cold out, it compresses a lot slower than when it's warm out. So the benefit of this style is that and I mentioned this earlier, but again, the video might not have turned out. The inside diameter of the fittings is the same as the inside diameter of the pipe. So instead of putting the fitting inside the pipe and compressing down onto it, you're actually putting the pipe on the outside of the fitting and expanding it out. So you get a much better flow through that joint. So at this point, we should be able to cut this to size. And I am getting a little bit tight, so there is a minimum distance between fittings, and I'll post that on the web page. But I don't really have a lot of choice on this one, so it's going to be what it is. But I believe I'm close. Now, because I can slide in the insulation from the other side, I won't insulate it at this point. Now it's just a matter of slipping it on, and we're done. So while that's shrinking back down, I will show you the last part of the equation here. In order to spool out the PEX and to ensure that it's not tangling, there's what's called a PEX unspooler. Now they're $600 to $800 online, and what I did is I built one based on ideas that I found on the net. And basically it's just on a Lazy Susan hardware. There's a base to it, and the upper part just rotates. The uprights are just to keep the inside diameter of the spool, so that it's not winding winding onto itself. Sorry for the picture here. Now, the one mistake that I did make, and I won't do it again, is you're actually not supposed to take off the outer plastic wrapping. You're supposed to leave that on and spool out of it. And that way you're not going to have a risk of it tangling. But for about 15 minutes of labor and $15 of parts, this has saved me a lot of time and money. So I bid you adieu, and thanks for visiting, and we'll talk soon.